And before President Trump's early morning tweet storm Friday about the Justice Department, it didn't seem like he had much to complain about. A recent CBS News poll found his approval rating had inched up to 40%, the first time in a year the president's approval has hit that mark. And that even had some wondering whether Republicans might be able to hold on to the House this November. Michael Graham is a CBSN political contributor, politics editor for NewHampshireJournal.com, and a columnist for the Boston Herald. He joins me now from Boston. Hi, Michael. You write that, quote, every Republican knows this president is one bad morning on Twitter or one bad meeting with Bob Mueller away from blowing up his own success. So how do you think Republicans viewed those tweets from the president about the FBI?
Those FBI tweets were for the Republican base. They were for the talk radio listeners. They're for the people who really feel like the, as they would say, deep state was out to get Trump from the beginning. And so that's their base. Just like there's another base that's very excited about the day that Donald Trump will be let out in handcuffs from the Oval Office and taken down to the local jail and thrown in there forever. And so those are the two bases. What I think is more significant, the number of Republicans who are embracing Trump out on the primary campaign trail in places like Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, where they know they're going to have to answer in a general election. They seem to be a lot more comfortable than they were in, say, December, hitching their wagon to President Trump, thinking it'll do more good than harm. That's been, I think, the shift over the past 4 or 5 months.
Right. Now, Michael, the president has also directed some angry tweets at Amazon in the past. And on Friday, we learned that he reportedly pushed the U.S. Postmaster General to double what the Postal Service charges Amazon to ship packages. Would a move like that be based toward the base?
You know, it's interesting. I think the entire story is Donald Trump, that he doesn't like Jeff Bezos, doesn't like the Washington Post, is mad, insulted. Bezos mocked him on Twitter about sending him off to space one day. So I think for President Trump, this is all personal. But I think one reason why it has some resonance with his voters is a lot of them live in smaller communities, rural areas like I grew up in, and the storefronts are largely closed down. The place where they used to go to buy their hardware all the time, or their wife used to go shopping, it's shut down because people are buying stuff online. And that mom and pop brick and mortar vision of America is very close to the vision that a lot of Trump voters have. It's almost like a cultural touchstone. So he may be kicking Amazon because it makes him feel good, but for a certain number of his voters, it makes them feel good too.
All right. So talking about that base that you're saying is a little bit more, energized right now, who then would you say has more power to shape the House at this point? Is it the president or the Democratic Party? In other words, whose fight is this to lose right now?
I talked to two pollsters from kind of different sides of the aisle, and they both told me the same thing. The movement you've seen that is helping Republicans is because of Trump. If you look at the president's behavior the last few months, it's been much more traditionally presidential. Yes, he still has a tweet storm in him every 10 days or so. But, he in that West Virginia race, he didn't get off the rails like he did down in Alabama when Judge Roy Moore was running. He was straight up, you cannot have this guy, Don Blankenship, be the nominee. He worked hard. He got a much more mainstream, very more competitive nominee. On Korea, on moving the embassy in Israel, even if you think that they're policy mistakes, he looked very presidential he was doing big things that presidents do. And so that feeds this notion. It's funny, I had a pollster tell me this week, he said, Michael, the people I talked to in my polling, they really didn't know if they elected Trump, if he would blow up the world, if there would be war like 3 weeks later. They really didn't know. And they now are settling on this idea that Trump's a non-traditional president, but he's not that non-traditional, that it's okay to have him there. And every time he does something that feeds that narrative, it helps him. And I don't know how Democrats knock him off that narrative, because it's been obvious. Russiagate, what's her face, the porn star Stormy Daniels, all those stories have been happening while the numbers for Republicans have been improving and declining for Democrats.
So what do you attribute this more disciplined president to?
I'm not going to try to mind read President Trump. I can't even understand what he means when he's talking. There's no way I can look inside of his brain. But it could be the case that he sees the rewards from doing things in a more traditional way. That he's, his poll numbers go up. People get warm and fuzzy. I've been fascinated, for example, I thought it was really great of Senator Chuck Schumer to make a very simple statement about the Israeli embassy, saying this is something we've wanted. The president should be applauded for it. A very straight, he wasn't over the top, but it was very straight. I think that kind of reinforcement could be having a positive impact on the president in keeping him more in between the ditches. It's interesting, too. All this is happening at a time where the consensus is that the people around him in the White House are having less influence, that General Kelly isn't holding the leash as tightly. So it could be the case that Donald Trump is finding a place where he's comfortable, traditional enough to make some voters happy, but still Trumpy enough to keep Trumpy happy at night when he goes to bed.
All right, we'll see how it all fleshes out in the races.
Exactly.
All right, Michael Graham, thank you so much.